Welcome to this explainer. Listen, if you're a focused fan trying to figure out exactly how a totally settled, seemingly predictable knockout match completely flipped on its head and turned into one of the wildest thrillers of the entire tournament, well, you are definitely in the right place. The stakes in World Cup knockout football mean there is literally zero margin for error. We're talking one tiny slip, one flash of absolute brilliance, or one bad tactical tweak, and boom, your team is packing their bags. Today we're breaking down Belgium's near escape against Senegal. This was a match that had absolutely everything. Desperate tactical pivots, heartbreaking blunders, and a climax that left the entire football world completely stunned.
And hey, I do not use a word like stunned lightly here. Analysts who are watching this unfold live on the broadcast were all basically saying the exact same thing. This game was absolutely bonkers. Honestly, that quote right there perfectly captures the sheer unpredictability of tournament football. I mean, for 85 minutes, this match was following a very specific, almost totally predictable script. Senegal was in the driver's seat, they were in control, and then, in the blink of an eye, that script was just torn to shreds. So, we're going to dissect exactly how a team goes from the absolute brink of elimination to advancing, all in just a matter of a few chaotic minutes.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline because you really have to see it laid out to understand the sheer speed of this comeback. In the 86th minute, Senegal is leading 2-0. At this point, they basically have one foot firmly planted in the round of 16, right? But skip ahead just a bit, and by the 119th minute of extra time, we are suddenly looking at a dramatic, heart-stopping VAR penalty review. That absolute chaos culminates in Tielemans scoring a match-winning penalty in the 123rd minute. Think about that swing for a second. From a highly comfortable 2-goal cushion to a devastating 3-2 defeat in extra time. How exactly does a collapse of this immense magnitude happen at the absolute highest level of the sport?
Section 1. The 2-0 collapse.
2 goals. For most of the game, that was the magic number. That was the cushion Senegal held, and in a knockout game, it meant absolutely everything. According to all the analysts, Senegal was just utterly sensational in that first half, and they entirely deserved that lead. They were cruising, they were dictating the tempo, and they were winning the physical battle. Meanwhile, pundits at halftime, and honestly deep into the second half, were quite literally writing Belgium's obituary. They were heavily criticizing them, pointing out that the squad of incredibly talented, world-renowned players just couldn't seem to bring it all together when it actually mattered on the big stage. For all intents and purposes, the Belgian team looked completely dead and buried.
But then, we get this massive turning point. Thibaut Courtois produces a world-class save, while his team is still 2-0 down. We talk so often about superstar forwards. You know, guys like Messi or Vinicius Jr. changing the entire landscape of a game with just one brilliant touch. But a goalkeeper can actually do the exact same thing with a pivotal stop. Think about it. If that ball goes in, it's 3-0 and it is unequivocally game over. There's zero coming back from that. Instead, Courtois provides this vital, massive spark. He basically keeps the life support machine plugged in just long enough for his team to find a pulse.
And man, that pulse was quickened by the manager. Coach Rudy Garcia realizes he is staring straight down the barrel of elimination, so he makes 2 really massive, urgent pivots. Step 1, he makes pure desperation tactical changes. He just starts throwing bodies forward to make something, literally anything happen, completely abandoning any cautious play. Step 2, he brings on big Romelu Lukaku to act as a massive focal point for the attack. Let's be clear, this wasn't about some subtle tactical masterclass or a beautiful flowing passing sequence. This was a team getting desperate, throwing the kitchen sink at the problem, and aggressively searching for any possible lifeline.
And this brilliantly illustrates the psychological side of football. One analyst made a great point, noting every one of them felt 6 foot plus. That just shows the immense psychological boost Lukaku's entrance gave the entire Belgian squad. The very second he came on the pitch and made his physical presence felt, you could visibly see the Belgian team rise to the occasion. Suddenly, they weren't that beaten, aging golden generation anymore, right? They were giants, collectively realizing they had one last desperate chance to actually go for it.
Moving on to Section 2, Missing Game Management.
Because, you know, a comeback isn't just about one team rising up, it's almost always about the other team falling apart. So if you take only one thing away from this explainer today, let it be this definition right here. Game management is the mental, tactical, and physical ability to grind out a result, keep your defensive shape, and master the really small details under immense pressure. The experts point out time and time again that this invisible skill is the exact missing ingredient that prevents incredibly talented, highly athletic teams from going deep and actually winning World Cups. It's not about flashy footwork or making the highlight reels. It's about having that cold, calculating mindset to know exactly what's at stake and having the sheer discipline to ruthlessly kill a game off.
Let's compare these 2 profiles for a second. On one side, you've got your talented teams. These are the squads heavily praised for their raw pace, their power, skill, and high-tempo athleticism. Think of squads like Senegal, Mexico, or the USA. They pass the eye test with flying colors, and honestly, they play breathtaking football. But compare that to winning teams like France or Argentina. They might not always give you beautiful, free-flowing football, but they absolutely excel at grinding out ugly results, religiously keeping their tactical shape, and paying extreme attention to detail. The analysts noted that when France went 2-0 up in a recent knockout game, they didn't try to play beautiful football out from the back. No way! They squeezed up, kicked it long, and played for second balls to safely and cynically see the game out. That, my friends, is true game management.
Senegal, unfortunately, lacked that exact attention to detail in those crucial, dying moments. We can actually break their collapse down into 3 very specific failures. First, because their entire game relies on attacking and maintaining a fluid shape, when they were asked to just calm things down and link 4 or 5 simple time-wasting passes, they struggled immensely. Second, on Belgium's equalizing goal, the Senegalese goalkeeper came out and just half-punched the ball instead of decisively claiming it or clearing it way out of danger. And third, as we'll see in a second, an entirely unnecessary sliding challenge was made in the penalty box deep into extra time. These aren't failures of raw athletic talent, they are catastrophic failures of game management.
Which brings us to Section 3, the controversial penalty climax.
The tension here was absolutely unbelievable. We are literally in the 119th minute of extra time. And suddenly, the question on everyone's mind and the one completely dominating the sports broadcasts is, was it actually a penalty? When you have a massive VAR review in the absolute dying seconds of a World Cup knockout match, it instantly becomes a massive flashpoint for intense global debate.
So, let's impartially look at the arguments on both sides. On the left, you have the defender's fault. The core argument here is that regardless of how severe the contact actually was, the Senegalese defender committed a fatal game management error. By leaving his feet and sliding in the box during all the chaos of extra time, he essentially forced the referee to make a decision. He gave the official a reason to blow the whistle. But on the right, you have the attacker's fault. Critics argue that while contact undoubtedly existed, it simply wasn't enough to physically bring the Belgian attacker down to the turf. They question the reality of the penalty itself, arguing the attacker's exaggerated reaction just didn't match the actual minimal contact. Both sides present a deeply compelling case based on the slow-motion footage, and honestly, it remains a highly divisive topic. But regardless of that intense debate, the reality is the penalty was awarded. Tielemans stepped up in the 123rd minute, and analysts immediately praised his amazing composure to put that penalty away. Think about it. We have seen so many terrible penalties under this exact kind of pressure, but he knew exactly where he wanted to put the ball. Executing that perfect strike with the weight of your entire country on your shoulders, staring down absolute elimination, that requires an extraordinary, almost superhuman level of mental toughness. Tielemans' success, however, meant absolute despair for the opposition. It was a completely heartbreaking end for Sadio Mané and Senegal. The analyst noted the profound emotional toll this specific type of loss takes on a squad. I mean, Senegal was within mere touching distance of the last 16. In just a chaotic 5-minute spell, a historic victory was ruthlessly swiped away from them. For players like Sadio Mané, in what is highly likely his final World Cup, to go out in this agonizing fashion, especially after previous controversies surrounding the African Cup of Nations, is utterly completely devastating. It truly highlights the cruelest side of tournament football.
Finally, Section 4. What's next for Belgium? So they survive, they escape, and are moving on to the round of 16 to face the United States. But here's the catch. This miraculous win might have actually exposed them in a major way. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that we are looking at a laundry list of glaring weaknesses for a team that just won a major knockout match. Despite the dramatic victory, pundits were very quick to point out that Belgium turns the ball over frequently. They looked incredibly sloppy and disjointed in the midfield. They are an older, slower squad relying on a fragile mix and match of aging veterans and inexperienced youth. And crucially, moving forward, they now have incredibly heavy legs after being forced to play an exhausting, grueling extra time period.
When you lay out the upcoming tactical clash, a fascinating, almost inverted picture emerges. Team USA is incredibly fast, highly athletic, and thrives on an aggressive, suffocating pressing game. Conversely, Belgium boasts massive tournament experience, but as we just covered, they are an older, slower squad now burdened with incredibly heavy legs after 120 minutes of grueling football. In fact, multiple experts pointed out that the United States squad is likely buzzing right now. Pundits actually believe Senegal's raw pace and incredible power would have been a much scarier matchup for the young Americans.
Belgium's slower, more open style of play, combined with their severe physical fatigue, might actually be highly conducive to making the American team look absolutely fantastic.
Which leaves us with a final provocative question to ponder before the next round. Is this older, tired Belgium squad, a team that required a literal miracle and massive opponent errors to advance, actually the perfect matchup for an athletic, high-pressing American team? Can Belgium's savvy veterans pull off yet another great escape? Or will their lack of pace and heavy legs finally catch up with them against a relentless U.S. side? It's a brilliant tactical clash you simply won't want to miss. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope this breakdown has given you a much deeper understanding of the incredible chaos we all just witnessed on the pitch.